Next up, we have another great presentation by Mounir, who is here to present Paraswap without even knowing it. So yeah, great to have you here. Give a round of applause for Mounir.
Thank you. Great to be here. Moved to Lisbon almost a year ago. It's my first crypto event. We started one in Paris. It's called DeFi Friends for 3 years, and I feel the same vibe. So I was very, very happy to be here. Before we start, how many of you guys have used decentralized exchanges? Just to have an idea on the crowd. It's almost everyone. Okay, that's cool. So Paraswap, for those who don't know, like Paraswap, which is also one of the top users of Paraswap, allows users to get prices that are better than the markets. And it's through an aggregation protocol, but also an expansion recently for limit orders, which is connected to aggregation that you can see later. And used obviously by Paraswap, out of the users, and we processed a few billions of dollars. What I wanted to highlight here is that most of the volume was processed by third parties who are user-facing protocols like Paraswap, like QuickSwap, like Aave, and others. Obviously, most of us are here. We're seeking for mass adoption, and I believe that so far we are at an inflection point, especially after the NFT craze that we've seen the last year and a half or so. And we've seen a big amount of users come in, but also a massive amount of brands that are launching on Web3 in a one way or the other to Metaverse, Web3, NFTs and stuff. So I believe this is what we're aiming for, and there are various ways to get there, but the future is clearly tending towards decentralization and Web3. And also this happened a few months ago that helped us a lot, which was really a good thing. And we've seen a massive also amount of migration from people who are in CeFi going to DeFi. We'll show a little bit some later. But also a lot of people are coming directly to DeFi right now instead of going through CeFi. And thank you, Sam, for that. When we talk about scaling, typically we mention TPS, transactions per second, for a few years, and it's still a big debate and a lot of innovations happening there. But I think there are a lot of things that can be scaled in crypto and DeFi in general. So there are volumes that can be scaled, so we're still expecting more volumes to come to DeFi and liquidity through TVL. Users, I've seen a lot of users have come into DeFi. We are now at like tens of millions of users using DeFi from few hundred thousands 3 years ago. And something that's very few people talk about is user experience. And UX designers have this concept of scaling, or scalability, design scalability. And I think that's something we should also focus on that will help also on bringing even more users to the space. Just a few words about aggregation theory. If you like to learn more, you can check Ben Thompson. He's theorized a lot about Web 2.0 aggregation. And in fact, aggregation, we see it everywhere. If you go to a grocery store, it's an aggregator where you can go there and buy anything that you like. And also it allows a lot of sellers to distribute and have mass distribution of their product that they couldn't do otherwise. So that's something interesting to see. But normally aggregation, when we talk about it, we focus a lot on Web 2.0 aggregation. And you can argue whether we like Web 2.0 techs or not, but Google was one of the biggest actors that scaled internet, that made a lot of things that weren't possible. In the beginning, well, we had search engines, but the scale or the mass scale that Google brought, where users were finally able to discover content that wasn't easily discoverable before, which encourages more content creators and web businesses to come along, which attracted more users, and it created a virtuous cycle. So that was, I would say, one of the innovations that we've seen in the Web 2.0. That's the fact of building efficient aggregation helped on scaling the user base and helped on scaling the liquidity of information that is available on internet. And also, I mean, at least for us, when we explain what is an aggregator, we tend also to create an analogy with the airline tickets in the travel industry, like Booking.com. When you buy a ticket from, Lisbon to New York, well, you go through Paris and then to London, or Paris and New York, or the aggregator is gonna just find you the best price. But it created also a big expansion where each category or each step of the I would say the user journey was broken down, or you have some aggregator that's specialized in one of those categories and make it bigger. For instance, you use maybe Kayak, Google Flights to get some inspiration, or where you'd like to go, or some random internet contents. For booking, you have Agoda, Booking.com. If you are super organized, maybe you would use something like a Tripits. You have the Ubers and Lyfts of the world to use, when you arrive, and to leave some reviews or read some reviews for the future travelers. You would use a Tripit or a Yelp or TripAdvisor. But also behind the scenes, there are what we call middlewares that connect the liquidity of travel, hotels and airplanes, with those user-facing aggregators. And two that are very known, and there are a lot actually, like Amadeus and Sabre, that creates this connection between the two. And nobody, who cares about what's Amadeus and Sabre if you're traveling, but they are the ones that, like the engines that allow this, I would say, journey to happen efficiently. Coming back to DeFi, so there are a lot of categories. We focus more on trading. So just making the parallel with the travel industry and DeFi, so you have this whole liquidity in decentralized exchanges, and you have user-facing applications. It can be for trading, it can be also for lending and borrowing, but everyone needs some liquidity, needs to exchange tokens in one way or the other, and middlewares like Paraswap, CowSwap, and others allow this to happen in a very efficient way. And one interesting example is this one. So if you're using Aave, you may be lending and borrowing, but a use case like this where you have, say, WBTC that's earning 2% APY, and you notice that ETH is earning 3% APY, you can do it yourself, go deposit back the ETH, the WBTC, swap it to ETH, then withdraw the ETH. Withdraw the ETH. The problem with that is, well, if you have a collateral, you may be subject to liquidation, so you have to be very careful on doing so. Otherwise, well, you'll be paying a very high price. But using a middleware or an aggregator can automate all of that. So they will know that you have a collateral, they will take a flash loan to get you above liquidation, and they will make the swap at a very good price, the best possible price. Then they will get you the ETH. So that's very, I would say, efficient using an aggregator than doing this yourself, or God forbid, using an AMM. Yeah, also, one of the values that aggregators bring is volume to decentralized exchanges. So when we were talking in the beginning about liquidity or TVL, if you use an aggregator for an example like this, that's 10 million USDT to ETH, in the eyes of the end user, there is an input of 10 million and output of 10. In the eyes of the aggregator is the same thing, but behind the scenes, trades like this are broken down and multi-hopped, like using DAI in the beginning, USDC, whatever else, and those exchanges have received more than this input-output amounts. At the end, here you can see that we've done at least more than 30 million in, I would say, in total exported volume. And some data you can see on Geoanalytics for us and for other aggregators that the exported volume is often higher by 25 to 30% than the processed volume. Another example also of the value add of aggregators is on the NFT markets. You can see that with us, with other aggregators, that allow users to buy an NFT and pay with any token. And even now, there are some fiat on-ramps that allow this to happen with fiat. So for instance, the seller asks for ETH, the buyer has DAI. In one trade, DAI is going to be converted to ETH, and then the seller gets the ETH, the buyer gets the NFT, and everyone is happy at the end. But also, thanks to Sam, we've seen more more institutions come into DeFi right now. And the fun fact is that they didn't even know those possibilities. And something that's very interesting that's existing in TradeFi is the separation between custody and trading, which we have already by default. In CeFi, well, it's the same thing. I mean, the exchange is at the same time the custodial, but in DeFi there is a by default separation between both. So the value add, I would say, on bringing these big guys, we provide them a highly secure environments, compliance, you can say, you can argue. I mean, I don't know if we should call it DeFi or not, but at least it's the exact same technology that they are using, permissionless or not. This is the only missing piece, but they are using just a technological solution that they didn't have before. And with the infrastructure that we have today, I think nothing is stopping them from start using DeFi tomorrow. Once we get over, I would say, the mental barriers. And after the FTX drama, we've seen this happening more and more. Well, but I believe we clearly don't solve the TPS problem, of course. But where we bring value is we bring more volume to the space. We bring more users, but I believe we enable user-facing apps to have a much better UX than what they used to have before. And I think this is a still ongoing, I would say, subject on discussion. But we clearly bring more volume, more users, and help on also on scaling the UX. Well, thank you, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thanks. Hi, Mounir, how are you doing? Yeah, I wanted to talk about that aggregation from the cross-chain level. So how do you think about that? And if you looked at that market, what do you think are the problems there in terms of like liquidity aggregation? Because that would be very, very great if it's solved.
Well, aggregation in the same chain is, I would say, more straightforward because we can guarantee atomicity. But on cross-chain, we lose the message once we go into the bridge inside. So this is where we have, I would say, challenges. Nobody has figured out a solution. Each time we will see a new aggregator, a new bridge, like Layer 0 recently, the solution seems perfect until we discover that there's still some work to be done. There are some bridge aggregators who are using liquidity aggregators like us, like Li-Fi, Socket, and others. They are doing well. They're getting nice traction. But yeah, we cannot guarantee the same security, or like we cannot give the same security guarantees if you are on a cross-chain versus doing the same chain.
Yeah, thank you for the great presentation. I think you really well explained like where do DEX aggregators currently add a lot of value. What do you think is the next frontier for DEX aggregators? What is next? Like, I think the current product works great. Cross-chain is very difficult to solve, but what is the next topic that you think is the most important?
Cross-chain, maybe? Yeah, I think now as the space gets more, I would say, sophisticated, we see more sophisticated users come in and just doing swaps, which you can make the analogy of swaps in the traditional markets to market orders. And I believe large traders are used to order books and more sophisticated trading. So I believe this should be the next step. You have the equivalent of liquidity aggregators in the Forex markets, and the execution is much more, I would say, complex, but it can help on making much better price discovery and much better execution efficiency. So I believe if there is a next step, subject to having more DEXs that use order books, that will, I would say, make aggregators even more efficient. In cross-chain, of course, that's definitely something that we would expect.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Well, you mentioned that some companies can go from CeFi to DeFi, and when do you expect, for example, stocks are coming to DeFi Vault, and is there like a possibility that there are some companies who can provide stocks, stocks, but done like maybe like an NFT token?
I think there are some protocols having stocks in form of ERC20 tokens. The only questions then becomes legal. I mean, I'm not a legal expert, but how can we have the DeFi efficiency in allowing users to trade stocks and bonds? Yeah, but I believe there are some protocols already. If you have an ERC20, you can or you can have synthetic stocks. Maybe this is what we have right now, synthetics. But having real stocks means that the issuers will issue on blockchains, which is technically possible. Yeah, the questions are like, how does this fit with regulations, and how safe this is for like founders and builders. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Mounir. This is great. Thank you for this great presentation.